So a very quick note before we begin, this video is going to be a little bit longer than the last one because I was trying to create a condensed kind of summary of how Neon plays, but after reviewing the game, it's clear that OpTic has put so much work into how they play this comp. Every piece of utility is planned out with team utility, and every action is supported by the team. So I want to just dive in deep to get into all of these little plays and all the little things that OpTic is doing to get this to work. So the first thing that stands out when comparing the two compositions of DRX and OpTic is that both teams are using Astra. So Astra's fallen out of the meta in a lot of compositions, but Split is kind of the one map that she's being run by, I don't know if it's the majority of teams, but a very large number still. The reason for this being that she has extremely strong utility for stalling out chokes, and Split kind of can be broken down into 3 main chokes rather than 4 or 5. Both teams are playing single duelist compositions, with DRX running Jet and OpTic running Neon. We're going to get to Neon later, but Jet's role is as an opper on defense and as the hard entry on attack. So Jet is able to dash in, smoke up, and create space for the rest of her team. She's able to updraft to Rafters from A main, for example. Jet has somewhat fallen out of the meta for a lot of other teams because Raze's utility has generally been considered a lot stronger on this map. However, Jet does provide that entry ability that you need to get into the sights on this defensive side. Next we have KO and Viper, and this is where the comps take pretty different approaches. So DRX is running Viper, who traditionally this map was running Astra Viper before the Astra nerfs, with the goal of using the Viper wall for lurks on A, and then using both the orb and the wall to completely cut down either mid or one of the sites, so that Viper functions kind of as a hybrid sentinel as well as controller. Meanwhile, OpTic, with the Viper and Astra nerfs, has decided to instead opt for that second initiator in KO. So KO is very interesting because he provides more flashes, which is the standard utility. He has a molly, which is always helpful for denying chokes, for denying plants. And then finally, his util that no other agent provides is the suppression. So the suppression is incredibly powerful for shutting down the Viper specifically, because if the Viper gets knifed or ulted, she no longer has access to anything. So this comparison isn't quite right because OpTic is kind of splitting their initiator roles between the KO and Breach, whereas DRX has only this single Skye. But we will compare Breach and Skye just for a little bit of comparison. So both agents have flashes. Breach has a stun in the fault line, whereas Skye has a stun on her dog. However, for both of these abilities, Breach doesn't give any info off of either of them, whereas Skye gives locations using the dog, as well as info whether a player was flashed on her flashes. So Skye provides the info that DRX is kind of lacking otherwise, whereas OpTic is focused on the pure stun and flash coming out of Breach. They have info coming out of KO instead. Breach also has Aftershock, whereas Skye has the heal. Heal obviously provides marginal value whenever your teammates are injured and you can heal them up, whereas Aftershock can hard clear a certain location on the map. Breach ult provides insane retakeability, whereas Skye ult is mostly another information ult, although it does provide strong retakeability as well. Finally, we have Ye playing Chamber, whereas we have Zest on the Sage. So Ye's Chamber, I don't know why you wouldn't put him on Chamber on this map, because Ye is an incredible opper. He's incredible with the Headhunter. He just hits shots, and he will lock down a site on his own. It is terrifying going into this guy. Meanwhile, Sage is a more traditional pick on this map because the slows are so strong, as well as the wall for providing both stall and info. But one thing to note is that DRX doesn't have any flank trips in their composition, so they're always going to have to be worrying about more flanks from the side of OpTic. Okay, so now let's get to the real good stuff, how Neon functions. First, a brief overview of her abilities. Her fast lane acts as a wall smoke, just like Viper's does, but obviously the downside is you only have one usage, whereas Viper can put hers up and down. She has the Relay Bolt, which is an additional stun that bounces off surfaces. And then she has her Sprint, of course, and her ultimate, which we'll talk about later. So we're going to go through a lot of the important rounds in this game where Neon has some big impact. But before we do, let's just think about how the Neon plays with the rest of OpTic's comp. So OpTic's comp has this double initiator plus Neon, and Neon kind of is a hybrid duelist slash initiator. And what we're going to see over and over and over again is Neon working with the Breach and KO to clear out areas with their util. So having the Relay Bolt in addition to the Fault Line from Breach will allow, let's say, Breach to stun all of B Heaven while Victor's able to clear out Mail or clear out stairs with the Relay Bolt. So having these overlapping stuns lets them clear out a whole line from the Breach as well as a corner with the Neon. Now, Neon's Relay Bolt is incredibly strong in certain positions on the map because of the bounce mechanic. The bounce will stun below where it hits. It does not need to hit the ground. And then bounce off and do the same thing at the second contact location. So we're going to see it used in corners, bounced off one corner so that it travels down into a deeper position, allowing Victor to push up with the slide on her sprint. One thing to note is, let's say you're in ranked, you're going to see a lot of Neons running around and dying while in sprint. One thing to pay close attention to is how Victor uses his sprint, which is very conservatively in general, or going all in and using the slide. So he uses a lot to jiggle corners or jump peak corners because if you're in the startup of the sprint, you're able to do an even faster jump or jiggle peak than you would be able to do on any other agent. He also uses the sprint to reposition, fall back faster than other agents could on defense, or rotate quicker to the other bomb site if he is on the wrong side of the map. So in general, the reason that OpTic is playing this Neon is that she can pick up a variety of roles that are provided by other agents that are used by other teams. The wall is able to provide a lane into sight, allowing to clear corners, such as the way a Viper wall would. Her bolt is allowed to stack with Breach util in order to clear out entire areas, like an initiator would. And then finally, she's also able to slide in and provide that hard entry like a Raze or a Jet. By picking the Neon over a Raze or a Jet, they lose some utility, for sure, but they're able to drop the second controller in favor of a second initiator, which allows them much greater control of certain focus areas of the map. We're going to start with round 3, because this is the first round where Neon starts to have a lot of value. So this is DRX's bonus round, whereas OpTic has a full buy here. You can see that Victor has full utility. And this is the first way that OpTic utilizes Neon on the defensive half, which is they trust her to be completely self-sufficient in a pretty risky area. So you can see that Victor is playing on top of the box on a ramp. And what he's going to do is he's going to either jump spot or just hold the angle, playing for info off sound cues. DRX does spot him out here with this Hawk, but he just holds his position, isn't afraid to take a fight. Meanwhile, DRX is pushing up mid and establishes vent control, and they're going to start exploring into B Heaven. Finesse finds the first pick off a long angle that he isn't afraid to hold because it is DRX's bonus round, and immediately off that, DRX dogs up ramp. Crashy supports by throwing a knife, which disables the dog, preventing them from checking Victor's position, and Victor's able to find the first kill off just holding the angle. He immediately throws a relay bolt onto ramp, prevent any further pushes, dashes away, and slides back to double up with Ye at a long angle at the back of Heaven. So you can see that they trust Neon to be self-sufficient, but he's able to fall back and play with the team after he gets that opening pick and stall with the relay bolt. In round 4, Victor is playing in the exact same position that he has been. There's a slightly different setup from his teammates. At the start of the round, he gets flashed in the same way just for info, and DRX does nothing off of it. So what happens is Victor peeks for info, and once he sees nothing, both Crashies and Ye move into vents in order to set up a trap play in mid along with FNS. They sit here for a while, but DRX is really having none of it, and they start rotating over towards A once again. All this time, Victor has been sitting in this off angle where he could hear anyone rotating through spawn if they were making footsteps, but luckily for DRX, they were walking the entire time, so they don't know. OpTic is still holding their setup in mid this entire time, waiting for anyone to trigger the trap. Viper's wall goes up along with the orb, and Victor starts getting suspicious. The vent player is rotated in towards heaven, and Victor gets flashed, but he immediately relay bolts to stun all the players pushing up, and they completely shut down the push. Because of the elevation of the box, there's a really difficult angle for them to deal with, where Ye and Victor are able to both fire at anyone coming up. They essentially create a high-low where the enemy has to flick between two both vertical and horizontally different locations. In round 6, Marv does one orb off of ult, so Victor works with him to push up A main with this deep star in order to try to secure the Astral Wall. DRX is playing this round very passive with 4 towards market or B main, and they're just holding this default, trying to see if OpTic is going to create any pressure on the map. You can see that Buzz is forced to hold pretty passively over towards A main with the star threatening any push, and without any trips, DRX is forced to commit a player here. Victor stuns through the recalled star to prevent anyone from pushing up, and in response, Buzz just works towards mid along with many of his teammates. We can see that DRX starts pushing up towards mid, and OpTic has it pretty much given up. There's 1 star and 1 chamber trip inside B heaven, which will get triggered as they push up. Crashies throws his knife to get info, and here's the stun plus suck combo. But unfortunately, they don't get anything done off of it, and the wall prevents reinforcement from Victor. While OpTic throws down their Astral Wall to prevent the push, the trades go in DRX's favor with only 1 kill going to Crashies. At this point, Victor uses his wall to cut off B main for the retake, and goes in fast before the Viper pit is set up. Unfortunately, the 2 players he finds are not the Viper, and now they are in a 2-on-2 retake into Viper, which is never going to favor OpTic. This wall additionally cuts off their vision so that they're forced to push into a crossfire within the Viper's pit. Victor maybe should have waited a little bit in order to play together with Marv, but it's hard to blame him when you're dealing with the Viper pit and the enemy could be anywhere at any time. In round 7, DRX decides to challenge Victor early and dashes in with Jet. Unfortunately, it looks like OpTic had the read on this and played Ye towards A. Victor uses his first recon bolt towards A main, which prevents anyone from pushing up to support Jet. He uses a second one at the top of ramp to prevent Jet from pushing in, and Ye is able to push up, kill Jet from behind, and TP out. From here, OpTic resets into a 2-2 hold, where both Victor and Crashies are holding A main, while Ye pushes up back to ramp with this operator, and FNS supports from behind. So Finesse now ults A main. He actually ends up ulting Crashies as well, but this is okay. And throws an aftershock to clear out the close corner, while Crashies pop flashes Victor through the smoke with the Neon ult. Unfortunately, Neon ult is not very strong in pro play because you can get one-tapped and not do enough damage in time, but luckily Marv has been on a long flank from B main, gets one of the 2 kills, and eventually they clean up Buzz in the end. After round 7, Victor no longer plays A ramp, likely because they don't want to get too predictable with their setup. Once Victor's no longer anchoring on ramp, they start utilizing him for coordinated pushes with other teammates. In round 10, he starts tucked to the close left side of B main, waiting for any push. DRX is playing a passive default, as they have been many of these rounds. They skyflash once to see if there's anyone pushed out mid, and there's no one, so they start pushing up before getting smoked off. At the same time, they're creating pressure with a Viper wall on A. This whole time, Victor has been tucked in the corner, just waiting for anything, but as soon as Crashy's knifes Garage and sees nothing, he starts pushing up together with Marv into Garage. They hit the entrance, and I'm not sure if he could hear Buzz there, but he continues to push up, trying to take space. The wall goes up on A, and Ye takes first contact, gets a kill, TP's out. Finesse supports with the stun, and Flash to try to stall with DRX as much as possible. Looking in your spawn, we see Victor has turned on sprint and has full sprinted towards the execute on A. Because of the wall, they couldn't hear him, and he gets the knife on Stacks, as well as another kill through the wall on Zest. He uses his fast lane to isolate the players on site while they set up for the retake 3v2. Unfortunately, Viper's Pit is still incredibly strong, and they can't convert the round as he tries to slide in to get information, but it ends up just going the way of DRX. Round 11 is an eco round from OpTic with a hero rifle from Ye, and they use this opportunity to do a set play where KO uses this flash, and Neon uses this relay bolt lineup in order to push A main. Here's the whole set play laid out. So Astra pre-places 2 stars, one to be used for a stuck for anyone holding deep, and one to be used for a stun in the cubby. Meanwhile, FNS has his stun positioned so that it stuns anyone hiding behind this box, as well as anyone in that cubby. Next, we have the relay bolt, which is bounced off a little piece of the hut above ropes, and then lands back behind the position where anyone would be holding deep. And at the same time, KO is going to throw a flash over that pops right here and flashes anyone in the cubby and anyone holding further back. Because of Astra's delay, there is a little bit of it's almost 2-second window before these stars are popped. But at this point, all of the other util has already gone off, and both Neon and KO have pushed up with Neon's slide. Unfortunately for OpTic, there was absolutely no one playing towards A this round, and it was a full B commit from DRX. So all of that util went to nothing. But gambling on one side of the map with a set play like this is a great play for an eco where you already have a low chance of winning. It unfortunately just didn't work out in this occasion. In round 12, OpTic opts to pressure both extremities on A with Ye and FNS on support, and then the other 3 players pushing out B main. There's a solo player holding any push for Garage, but they get pushed off the angle by the triple swing. Crashies rotates off and back to B heaven while both Victor and Marv are holding B main still. In response to the extremity pressure, DRX has pushed up mid, while still holding 3 players who are looking to take back B main. In anticipation of this, OpTic actually falls off and just uses the space to burn time off the clock, having burned it down to 1 minute already. A dog is used because of the pressure they applied and the control they took in B main. DRX starts their B split execute, but unfortunately there's a little bit of miscoordination and Zest doesn't wall off stairs fast enough, and RB is killed on the angle by Victor. I want to take a look in depth at the angles that OpTic chooses to take in this site hold because it's pretty beautiful, honestly. So obviously Victor got this first kill by isolating this angle on the Jet in heaven. Now, Sage revives the Jet and she comes back, but Victor doesn't re-peek knowing that he's in danger of these other players in heaven, and instead Crashies gets the kill on the res Jet. Meanwhile, Marv has been holding back sight, and as Astra comes out trying to kill Crashies, she's taken out from back sight. Stacks tries to swing into Marv, but Crashies is also ready to swing her, and Marv gets the second kill anyways. At this point, Victor has rotated all the way through B, and FNS has ulted through heaven, and these 2 players are just extremely easy to clean up. They're getting sandwiched from the rotators from A, and they have 3 players on site to deal with. So to summarize, OpTic generally uses Neon in 2 ways on defense. The first way is trusting her as a self-sufficient anchor for a contested area. In this game, it was largely a ramp, where she was holding with the relay bolt in order to prevent anyone from pushing up, usually on top of this box, and then is able to jiggle peek, stun, and slide away in order to get to safety before anyone can push up on her. The other main way that OpTic utilized Neon was in coordinated defensive aggression, using the Breach and KO utility to support her pushes into either A main or B main, and then Astra is able to support from across the map with her stars. Because of Neon's slide, she's able to break crosshairs while they push up off the utility, and hopefully find these opening picks. She's also able to fall back quickly and rotate off to other areas of the map that DRX might have been pushing. Throughout the entire attacking half, OpTic is going to lean into the combos with Neon, KO, and Breach in order to take space. In the first round, they're going to use the KO knife to find if there's anyone playing close, stun from sewers to stun anyone playing ramp, and then sprint and slide in to punish anyone who's stunned. You can see the Victor gets his first kill and then immediately leaves, while KO throws a flash over the Viper Orb in order to threaten A. This pulls 3 players over towards A, while in reality, they've rotated over for a B hit. You can see that Victor is already in Garage, but by the time that Crashes is only towards the exit from Ramen, and he's able to get an ult orb because of it. The early aggression found them the opening pick and pulled 3 players over towards A, leaving a solo Astra for Ye to take out and giving them the round, because OpTic is now in a 5v3 post-plant position. While they still have Astra stars, they still have chamber traps, and they are in pretty much an unlosable situation. Round 14 is an anti-eco, so OpTic should be massively favored, but it's interesting to note that they use the same ramp stun, which they've now conditioned DRX to worry about. DRX has stacked 4 players towards A, but instead OpTic doesn't do anything off of the stun, and they just 5-man walk up mid, take B heaven, take site, and win the round. OpTic's bonus round starts with a pretty passive default, where both Marv and Victor take B main, while Finesse and Crashies take mid control and bait out the Sage wall and slow. They then regroup in B main and prepare for an execute. Victor uses fast lane and a relay bolt in order to threaten Buzz on backside, but unfortunately a gravity well prevents them from going in. From here, OpTic cuts noise and begins to start working mid again. Crashes is able to find Mako on the Viper, and they begin to do a B split. Victor slides into new box with a stun from FNS covering the backside. Unfortunately, Zest is in a position that doesn't get stunned. Victor gets killed on the way in, and Zest is actually given 3 individual 1v1s, which he wins with his gun advantage. Round 16 starts with Victor using a relay bolt to prevent any defensive aggression in B main. He then falls off and rejoins his team mid, where they start working up towards Vent. Crashy's nice to see if anyone's in mail or close Vent, and Victor ends up using a relay bolt in Vent in order to take control of the upper part of Vents. Once they have upper Vent control, they flash into lower and drop. RB makes a little bit of a mistake and thinks that Victor's going to show himself, but ends up just getting spammed because they can see his feet. OpTic thinks about going into A from here and places a star as if they will, which draws one of the B side players towards A. Finesse aftershocks the close corner, and Crashies and Victor go up at the same time. Zest has got himself up into this vertical position and is able to find 1 before falling back to site. Off of this loss of Ye, they immediately rotate back over towards B side, where Marv had been exploring on his own. Because they had vent control, they're able to rotate between the mid to A and mid to B sites. Buzz gets Victor on the way in, but Marv trades out, leaving them in a 3v3, where trades end up favoring OpTic, and they win the round. In round 17, OpTic starts with some A pressure. They break the Sage Wall, which Zess has been placing every round, and force out a slow. They get smoked off by Astra, but choose not to push through the smoke, knowing they'd be in a crossfire. RB has been forced to rotate from vent to ramp and is playing a judge because he didn't have rifle credits. OpTic uses a stun and knife, finds out RB's there, and chooses to leave. DRX still has full information though, because RB felt no pressure to rotate off of the stun with a shotgun. Zess pushes through, gets the info that they haven't pushed through the A main smoke, and RB goes back to holding in vent. OpTic gears up for a B hit, but Stax is able to get information that they're in B main with one of his Hawks. They get smoked off, but this same box smoke has been used by Buzz many rounds in a row, and Victor crouches and finds the kill through it. OpTic freezes for a second, waits for the smoke to go down, and then throw a relay bolt in order for Victor to entry. He slides in, but gets killed by the player playing the same spot that Buzz had died. One thing to note is Victor chose to buy full armor over buying fast lane, and if he had the same fast lane that he usually uses on B site, he likely wouldn't have been exposed to that angle. Trades end up going in DRX's way, although it's a very close round. Round 18 is the perfect example of why Neon ult is not very strong in pro play, because Victor just gets instantly headshot and you can't use it like an eco weapon like Chamber ult or Jet ult. Round 19 goes to OpTic in an execute where they take a Heaven and then fall out and 5v2 the players on site, but Neon doesn't really do anything interesting besides just entering, so we're skipping it. So round 20, both Finesse and Crashies are pressuring mid, while the other three players are exploring towards A. DRX has 2 players in male and 2 players on A. Marv pops the smoke on the A cross, forcing DRX to be worried about them popping or taking control of A Heaven. Off of this, OpTic has started rotating off, and Victor has been solo clearing outside B main because of the trap positioning, knowing that DRX could have pushed out. Meanwhile, DRX is still worried about the A push, with Mako playing in vents, worried about the A ramp control that the smoke threatened. Crashes knifes Heaven and FNS ults while Victor slides in to secure stairs. He then recon bolts to clear Hell, and they split execute onto B site. The Astra wall has cut off reinforcements in addition to the KO molly. Buzz is pinched on site, dies to the B main players, and leaves DRX in a 3v4 retake where OpTic already has sight. They try to quick retake before the bomb is down. Trades come out, but eventually OpTic wins out with man advantage. In round 21, DRX is on an eco, and OpTic tries to disrespect the eco by doing a fast B main push. Victor goes in with his fast lane, stuns the usual positions, while FNS dumps util as well, and Victor gets into backside. Unfortunately, Mako gets 2 with a snake bite. Victor is isolated alone with none of his teammates able to come out of main, and they get eco'd. While OpTic had a massive gun advantage, DRX still had all of their util, and the util is what shut down the push. In most other rounds, OpTic tried to burn util mid or A early in the round, but in this round, DRX was able to just dump util on the choke and prevent anyone from helping Victor, isolating him and getting free util kills as well. Round 22 is an eco from OpTic that gets shut down pretty easily, but there is this little clip that shows how Neon and Breach are able to combo their stuns to push the Opper off the angle and get a free kill while entering into sight. Neon's also able to use her fast lane to get into CT and find a pick on Buzz, who is not expecting the push. In round 23, OpTic takes control of Vent using the same combination of smoke, knife, and flash, where Crashies and Victor work together in order to double up on every fight they take and have an advantageous fight repeatedly. Once they have control of Vent, they now are able to pivot between both A and B and force DRX to hold the extremities, knowing that they have an alternate route into both Heaven. OpTic freezes for a full 20 seconds, trying to take advantage of their mid control. Eventually, Crashies and Victor create some pressure towards a Heaven, where they use the fast lane and stun in order to push Mako off of his angle. However, they've been pivoting towards B, but FNS gets picked walk peeking into Garage and RB has the angle held with an op. This triggers a push into Heaven, where Victor stuns up Buzz in Stairs, and Crashies and Victor double peek Heaven and pick off Stacks. RB whiffs a shot on Victor dropping out of Heaven and gets cleaned up. Buzz also tries to fight but ends up dying without any reinforcements near. Crashies with low HP decides to push CT and finds the pick on Zest, leaving it into 4v1, where the round will be cleaned up. In round 24, OpTic decides to take fast mid control. Victor jump peeks across and baits an op shot, forcing out the dash. Both Mako and RB get sucked, but because Mako has a judge, he's able to take out Victor. Trades go out evenly, leaving it into 3v3. RB makes an extremely risky play and whiffs, leaving his team in a 2v3. Fortunately for him, Marv and FNS decide to back up, and FNS full running with his back turned event gets shot in the back, Marv gets 1v1'd, and then they both get cleaned up. With Zest res, this is now a 3v1, and we're going to overtime. This video is already getting pretty long, so we're going to pretty quickly rush through overtime. So round 25 is a full 5-man B-main execute from DRX, but they kind of get stalled out, and it ends up being a 5v5 on site, where it just comes down to the utility usage, the fights, and how each team trades each other out. Round 26 ends up in a 3v3, where OpTic is 2-1 splitting onto B site. The two players coming out of main are able to get their duel, but unfortunately FNS is the one who had bomb, and the bomb gets stuck in Heaven, leaving an easy cleanup for Zest. Round 27 ends up coming down to a 4-1 split by DRX onto B site, but Ye is holding in B main, gets the first kill on the player coming out of Heaven, is able to clean up the one player in B main, and from here, because of his anchor point in B main, DRX is unable to deal with the pinch from the reinforcing players from both CT and Heaven, and OpTic win the round. Finally, we're going to take a little bit deeper look at round 28. Victor stuns on B main to prevent any early pushes, jump peeks it to force out his smoke, and they bait with the orb. OpTic then leaves B main and rotates back towards mid. A slow is put down by Zest, but there is no wall down in mid, so Finesse ends up stunning Zest in male, along with the knife and recon bolt, where Victor dashes in. Because Mako's playing on the left side of event, he's able to clean up Victor. However, he now is completely isolated and gets traded out almost instantly. This shows how even when the Neon entry doesn't work, she creates enough space and isolates players with the utility such that the trade is inevitable. From here, DRX is forced to 2-2 split on the sites, giving up all mid control. OpTic decides to go through vents, and ends up peeking up through A Heaven together as 3. Marv is sitting back A main, ready to push with them. OpTic secures Heaven control, while Stacks and RB are stuck on site. A smoke comes out and screens along with the knife that disables any util from Stacks, and Crashies ends up flashing into the smoke, picking off RB who had hid there. Stacks is able to get one, but is now in a 3v1 on site, and OpTic is able to secure the bomb. They lose one on the way in, but they still are able to trade him out and get the plant down, leaving Buzz in a 2v1 situation. Buzz has absolutely no stars left, so he needs to rely on some absolutely heroic shots. But unfortunately, he swings out and gets killed by Ye's op. To summarize Neon's role in attack, it's essentially as the entry fragger. OpTic is constantly comboing KO flashes, KO knife, breach stun, and breach flashes with the Neon in order to enable her to take the crowded spaces on split. We constantly saw RB failing to get value with the operator on Jet, and getting stunned or flashed off angles, and instead getting picked off without finding value. Finally, by running Neon, OpTic is able to run double initiator as well as replace the Viper with the wall smokes of a Duelist. This gives more flexibility in taking control of certain areas of the map and allows pressure solo from the Duelist. If you got through the whole video, thank you so much for watching, and I'm hoping to get some more videos out soon.